Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is a channel about Dungeons and Dragons where we try and take a darker tone with everything we do here. So if you like edgier kind of content, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. What you do for us is absolutely amazing. Big thank you to our good friends at Critical Failures. We're part of a live stream game every Wednesday night. The link of both of those is in our description, as well as a link to a new channel we are starting about World of Warcraft Hardcore. If you like it, it's called Deathbound Gaming. It is in the description as well. Check it out if that's kind of your thing. With all of that out of the way, we're going to jump into this week's video, and we're going to talk about player death in campaigns. Now, I had a player die in a campaign that I'm DMing currently, and so obviously that was the inspiration for this video. Now, understanding how and why a player death is important to the story is something I think is very it's very looked over. A lot of times people see death in D&D as a reactionary thing, as something that kind of just happens and you just kind of have to deal with it. But if it's used correctly, a circumstance that does cause a player's death can help to tie you into the story. It can help you to kind of make your characters that more invested in what's going on and understand the value of their lives and their choices. Usually the first death in a campaign causes one really important thing to happen. People now understand how serious the campaign is. Before that point happens, you're kind of facing this this circumstance where you can just survive everything. Like, everything's fine and there's no consequences to your actions. You can just kind of mitigate your way through. And the instant that death happens, and you know, like, oh, they're not coming back, that's it, that character's gone. Now your characters have a finite resource, which is their own decision making and choices. And they have to nurture that resource. Otherwise, they might end up losing it and end up in a situation like their other party members in. Those kinds of aspects really ground the game. I've played with some DMs and I've heard some wild advice out there. One time a guy said, just as soon as you can, kill your first player character. And I asked him why. Like, that doesn't seem beneficial. And he said, as soon as you do, everyone kind of gets that this is not a time to joke around. And I think that's more so a pacing thing and an emotional setup that the DM is having issue with in starting the game. But killing a character is not something you want to do. As a DM, obviously, you're not out there to destroy your player characters. I like to think of like that fine line that you have to walk is make encounters and things challenging enough that they can die. And that's a very real possibility. Take them down a few times, make them have to spend those valuable resources to sustain someone's life, but don't purposely go out to kill them. There are traps and certain things in certain campaigns and modules that will instantly kill your party members if they do fall for them. And I don't think that's fair. I'd rather those do serious damage or make you unconscious or something like that than to just finally just go out and just end your life. It's not really... It doesn't really help the story to just turn everything into Game of Thrones. And when you do that and when you take player characters' lives in that kind of mentality, that's what it becomes. It becomes like, oh, like, I'm going to get invested in this character, and then 3 sessions later, they're going to die. Some campaigns are deadly like that, like Tomb of Annihilation is deadly like that. Icewind Dale is like that. And there's a bunch of others that have that very high death rate for player characters. But again, how does that affect your story? Your job as DM is to manage the story, to cause the story to happen, and to have everyone the opportunity to invest, take player agency, and participate in making that story greater and grow into something awesome. Deliberately going out to kill your party members doesn't foster that. And it does foster this kind of like, okay, now he's not on the same side of us. And a big thing that people forget is that the DM is on your side. And if they're not on your side, then they're probably not the DM for you. And that's something I really think that people need to incorporate and be very aware of while they're playing. Yeah, don't kill your players for no reason. Do have a firm hand on if they make choices, these are consequences, and let them make those choices. That's something that's really, really important. That's something that they will have to deal with, but it's important to let them make that choice. And when it happens, it is important as well for you to follow up on those consequences. It's just the way it is. No one wants to kill a character, but it does happen. And you know what? Let it play out the way it's supposed to play out, because that's what the dice said. Also, understand that the intelligence of the enemy is important as well. If you're fighting hobgoblins and a player character goes down, the hobgoblin is going to stab you when they're down. It's just to almost ensure that you're going to fail that final death saving throw and be eliminated from the game. That is the difference between fighting intelligent characters and non-intelligent characters. Militant characters will do that, and it is important to foster that and let them know that, because you don't want to leave that to chance and make them understand the severity of the enemies that they're fighting, and it really puts weight behind running into an encounter or running into enemies as a whole. And that's a very great tool that a DM should be fostering. I want to tell you a story about a player that I've played with a lot, and I really, really like this guy. He's one of my favorite people to play with. His name is Mike. I call him Money Mike all the time. I've mentioned him previously in a lot of videos, but I was playing a campaign with him, and he died. And then before the session was over, he had a new character already brought into the game. And it was cool because I've never seen that before, but it did hurt the loss of the character we just had. And I think it's important to kind of foster that. Sorry, the dog is underneath me. To really foster that and really let the players have that moment where they grieve that character. I think that really builds up that character's meaning and importance to the game. It also sets up this avoidance to finding a character in a barrel somewhere, like you're in a dungeon and they just happen to be found. Unless it's kind of planned out to incorporate that into the character, it kind of makes their character not have the same impact that they would if they met them in a better scenario. So what I tend to implement is whenever a character is murdered in the games or passes for whatever circumstance, what I like to do is I like to not bring them back immediately and give them a little bit of time in between sessions, or maybe have them not involved in the next session. So that way the new character can be their own thing and not just, oh, welcome back, here's the next episode where we just coincidentally met someone. It doesn't work that way. I'd rather have something set up that's a great way to not have the party member just see them and go, hi, high five, you're part of the team. Let them be brought in under some sort of circumstance that makes them go, look, I'm here and we both kind of had to deal with this issue. Maybe we're on the same side, and let that foster and let that grow into something, because it helps develop that character's importance and not as a sidekick. Because when a lot of player characters start dying, they all tend to feel like sidekicks. Usually when I play games, there's a joke going on that the main character isn't revealed out of the party until everyone else has died. So then the last living character becomes that main character. And I think it makes sense. I think you should be rewarded somehow by being the last surviving person. But the reason why that character feels like they're the main character is because everyone that comes back doesn't have that same impact as when your party first meets each other. And the reason why is because you kind of just pick them up along the way. It's kind of like, oh, hey, you hate the bad guy? I hate the bad guy. Dun, 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 dun. And like, that's it. Sometimes you'll go on a quest to kind of get them and bring them in. And I think that really helps out showing the severity and the importance of some of these characters. I think that works well with getting them to feel not like a backup character and make them feel like a part of the story. And doing that is really, really the tightrope you kind of got to walk. Because obviously this is a secondary character and it is involving the players doing something to get them into the party. I think that works better than just, here you go. We open a chest and boom, there's the Goliath barbarian that we just found out is part of the party. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel as good. It makes more sense for them to be brought into something and have some sort of value to them. Now, that does go hand in hand with how that character's story now affects the game. I do always say that incorporating your player's backstory does make it easier to have them tied into the story and invested in the story, and that's really what you want. So when you've done all this paperwork and gotten the idea to put a character's backstory in, and now they're gone, what do? I think it's best to not try and like recoup and kind of like reword everything, because it's going to feel like you reworded it, and you know that because you're going to be the one that's doing it. Take some of the influences, some of the connections of how they were connected, and maybe mitigate that into putting some of those things into how you're going to implement the new character's backstory. It is a lot more work, but I think it's valuable and important to do so. I think it matters to the character and it matters to the story, and it's worth investing. I think that's a very valuable part to this whole kind of connection. The other thing I want to say is when you do that, you do have to work around when to fit them in. I would probably fit them in a little bit later and have that kind of coalesce, because you don't want to put that in and rush it. Like say your character was next, and as far as you're implementing their arcs, and then they die. Like move on to another character, bring that forefront, and then switch that place to the back to give yourself time to work that in. You don't want to rush anything. Planning and writing story and DMing, the more you put into that back of the house kind of work, the more you'll see it in the campaign and see the players reflecting that and enjoying that. I think that's important. So take the time, really invest it. A player death should not be something that just kind of happens and you move forward. A player death should have impact. It should be meaningful. And when it is, you should be willing to do the work to put in the effort for the new character coming in to make sure that character carries a big part of that meaning. The reason why I tend to make sure that players have a little bit of time before their characters come back is because when I die in campaigns, my instinct every single time is to come back and wreck the campaign. If we are in a campaign involving a city, it is my intention to come back as a fire draconic sorcerer and burn the whole city down, orphanages first. Now, it's an impulse. I can't help it. It's always my first thought. It takes me a little bit of time to get past that and to accept, to be like, all right, I know 90% of the time it's my fault. B, I have to understand and respect the value of everyone else's fun and know that that always is a bad idea. Going in there with the intent of getting revenge on the game for passing on your character ultimately just causes turmoil for the party and for the DM, and that is not what we want. So I need that break, I know personally, to kind of get through those emotions, to be like, all right, I'm done being mad about this. Let me now make a character that actually fits and works and makes sense within the campaign and can do these cool things. It's important to implement that for me, so that way when I come back, I'm not ready to wreck everything. I want to be able to invest my character the way I do all of my characters, and I put a lot of effort into my characters because I like to roleplay, and in order to roleplay, I need to have layers upon layers upon layers and backstory for my characters and connect them and get those, like, that understanding of that emotional connection to them. That is important to me. That is really, really important to me. So incorporating that, I do in all of my characters, which is really why I don't like playing one-shots, because to play the character and then have them gone forever, just kind of, it's so much effort on my part to just have them be tossed away and very rarely ever seen again. So in that regard, it's something personal that I like to invest in, and giving myself time to not rush back in is important. But I always come up with something for the players to do, like, you can take over this NPC for the duration he will be around, and in case combat does happen, you will be able to at least participate in that and be part of it. You can do this, or you can do this, or you can assist me as DM, and I can show you some of the ropes of some of the things that you, in case you ever wanted to learn, could kind of get a grasp and an idea, and you can support me. It depends on the player, what they want to do. So, sometimes it is like, you know what, I'm just going to take this week off and just not do that. But giving them the option to be able to do that is important, and let them be a part in some other facet really helps them, especially if they really enjoy the game and want to learn other aspects of it. With all that said and done, I hope this has given you ideas and helpful tips in order to compensate and prepare yourself and be ready for these circumstances when your player characters do die. It happens, unfortunately. I've never played a campaign where everybody made it, but it is something that I think, if done right, is a very great moment. I remember one time I played with someone and we were real deep. It was a level 20 campaign. We were probably at like 12 or 13. And my character died, and one of the people I played with, she started crying. Like that much of an impact, that weight of when like that final death save failed, like silence fell, and you could feel that heavy moment, and it just changed the game. Like the dynamics of it was just worlds different now. Now who were we after losing them? And that, like, it was a sad moment. I really loved that character, and it was such a great moment. Like, I would not change it for the world. I would much rather have that character die in like every version because of how great that moment was. It was sad, but it was really beautiful, and it felt so like cathartic, and like it meant something, and it really caused us to really hate the bad guys we were fighting. And now we were really invested. Now we were locked in. Now we were gunning for the bad guys. We needed to take them out for revenge, period. This mattered. This wasn't anymore just about us doing the right thing. It was about us avenging one of our own, and it was so good. I get chills thinking about it now, and I really hope every player gets to have that kind of moment, because it's awesome. So I definitely want people to feel that. So I definitely don't shy away from it. And I don't think you should either. Embrace the moment. And hopefully it ends up being a good moment that pushes a great change, a positive change in how the party understands the game and their connection to each other. That might start them talking and caring more about each other because they know what it's like to lose one of them now. If you made it this far into the video, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. And a big thank you to our good friends at Critical Failures. The links to both of those is in the description. And I do want to say, if you do like World of Warcraft, if you like hardcore, check out our new channel, Deathbound Gaming. The link is in the description. And thank you for giving a spooky kid a chance.